In your AS exam, you'll be assessed on your understanding and application of relevant contextual factors, so it's important to understand how the novels you're studying were influenced by them. Let's start with Wuthering Heights. A younger sister to Charlotte and an older sister to Anne, both of whom also became authors. Their aunt, who raised the Bronte children after their mother died, was deeply religious. Emily Bronte didn't take to her aunt's devout Christianity. Think of the mocking portrayal of Joseph. Perhaps he was modelled on her aunt's religious fervour. Their brother Branwell was an alcoholic, so think about the parallels that can be drawn between him and the character of Hindley. The Brontes lived in West Yorkshire, in the midst of the moors. These wild, desolate expanses of land later became the setting of Wuthering Heights, and Emily lived among them her entire life. She died in 1848 at the age of 30. Wuthering Heights falls within the Romantic period of literature. The Romantic movement flourished through the late 18th and early 19th centuries. The movement celebrated emotion, wildness, and nature above reason and science. It can also be categorised as a Gothic novel because of the references to the supernatural, the ghosts, the themes of madness and death, and the extremes of passion prevalent throughout the novel. The Gothic is often described as the dark side of romantic fiction. Think about how the constrictions of genre could lead to the contrast between Edgar and Hugo. As well as this, although the Romantic movement flourished in the 19th century, this was also a time of strict social morals and values. The Victorian era is well known for promoting prudish behaviour, so running wild on the moors would have been considered unacceptable. Now let's think about the context of Mrs. Dalloway. Virginia Woolf was born in 1882 into a large and literate family. Woolf was educated and extremely well-read, but she was never given the university opportunities her brothers were. Her father's death and her subsequent sexual abuse by her half-brothers contributed to Woolf's mental illness. Mrs. Dalloway takes place in June of 1923, and though the United Kingdom was technically victorious in the war, hundreds of thousands of soldiers died fighting and the country suffered huge financial losses. In 1922, much of Ireland seceded from the United Kingdom, and many of Britain's colonies would reach independence in the decades following, including India, where Peter Woolf returns from. In Mrs. Dalloway, Woolf critiques the conservatism and dogmatic nature of the upper classes at the time, in conjunction with presenting the tragedy of the lost generation following World War I, like Septimus as a victim of PTSD. Mrs. Dalloway falls under the modernist genre. Gone was the Romantic period that focused on nature and being. Modernist fiction spoke of the inner self and consciousness. Instead of progress, the modernist writer saw a decline of civilization. Instead of new technology, the modernist writer saw cold machinery and increased capitalism, which contributed to the greater alienation within society. Because of the focus on consciousness and inner self, and Woolf's intention to simultaneously portray the said and unsaid, Mrs. Dalloway is complex, psychological, intricate, and dense. Even in one sentence, you will encounter multiple ideas and multiple tones. Interestingly, Woolf does not use the setting of London in any passive way. The backdrop serves the important purpose of giving context. Woolf makes reference to a number of sites throughout the novel, such as Buckingham Palace, the House of Parliament, and Westminster Abbey. The statues of famous generals and leaders in Trafalgar Square suggest the importance of patriotism to the British way of life, and Big Ben's hourly chiming serves as a constant reminder of the passage of time, a key theme within the novel.